Hello everyone, my name is Mandy van der Graag and welcome to this talk on understanding and preventing early school leaving. I will present to you some of the tools and results from the UConnect project in which we studied this topic. So why focus on early school leaving? Well, it is a serious and often negative turning point in the lives of adolescents. It sets into motion all kinds of negative cascading events that end up in unemployment, mental health issues, serious consequences, and it happens quite a lot in about 10% of the European adolescents. So why do they do it? Why do they quit school? Well, there have been many studies on this, and some of the known predictors are being male, having performed poorly in the past, having a low socioeconomic status. So there's much knowledge on such static predictors, but these are not very helpful if you want to prevent early school leaving, because you cannot really change them. And there is very little knowledge on changeable processes that precede early school leaving and what they're shaped and when you can time your prevention efforts. And when it comes to prevention efforts, actually a lot of effective projects are already happening in the Netherlands and throughout Europe. But there has not been much systematic investigation in how they work or documentation on it. And thus the information does not really spread, it stays rather local. And this is where the UConnect project comes in, where we investigate and document what effective prevention projects do to stop early school leaving before it happens, and to see what trajectories precede early school leaving in terms of changeable processes. And we investigated these questions with an intensive longitudinal design, that is weekly questionnaires for 4 to 6 months. We included a control group and of course adolescents at risk for early school leaving. These adolescents were in vocational education, so following very practical educational trajectories to become a car mechanic or a farmer. And they were flagged as being at risk for early school leaving by their own schools, for example, because they were absent a lot. And then they were assigned mentors. And we included these mentors of these adolescents as well. And we only include mentors and adolescents who were from the very best prevention initiatives in the Netherlands. And these adolescents at risk for early school leaving presented us with somewhat of a challenge, because we didn't think that they would be very willing to participate in an intensive longitudinal research design. So we had to really try to optimize participation. So we developed the UConnect platform, which is basically a web app that is usable on any smartphone. And adolescents were sent automatic reminders, a text message that contained a link to the questionnaire, and they just had to click it and they got to the questionnaire. It was personalized, so it used their name, but they didn't need to log in or anything. We really tried to minimize the effort that they needed to put in, so we were very strict in the amount of items that we included. And we relied on motivational strategies to keep them interested. Intrinsic strategies such as the personalization, but also extrinsic strategies by using a monetary reward. We had this reward page where they could see their progress towards the end goal, completing all the questionnaires, and they received €2 for each questionnaire. And then in the inner circle they had a kind of a bonus streak, that if they completed 3 questionnaires in a row, they got a bonus euro for each following questionnaire. And using this UConnect platform, we achieved a good participation. Among the control group, this was 90% at the beginning, and later on it's dropped to about 80–85%. And for the students at risk, it started out with about 75% and dropped to about 65% near the end. So we were pretty happy with those numbers, more than we expected. And for the mentors, this was a bit more difficult. We didn't give them any monetary reward. We thought they would be intrinsically motivated because this research and the results was relevant for their work as well, but I guess we overestimated that. But we were very happy with the participation of the adolescents. So if you're interested in using this platform as well, you can, because it is open source, meaning that it is free for everyone to use, and particularly useful for collecting intensive longitudinal data, both in individuals or in dyads over time. So here you see some of the results that we generated. You can see the commitment to the education choice over time. And in red, you see the control group. They started a little later in the year. In green, you see the at-risk adolescent group who eventually stayed in their educational trajectory. And in blue here, you see the at-risk group that eventually dropped out. And what is interesting is that the ones who dropped out showed pretty high commitment at the beginning of the year, and this dropped during the year to below the levels of that of the control group. But particularly them being so committed at the beginning, while their at-risk counterparts who eventually stayed in school were much less committed. We thought that this was particularly interesting. And we also see the same pattern for confidence in passing the school year. So again, at the beginning of the year, the at-risk students who eventually dropped out were very confident, much more confident to the at-risk students who eventually stayed. But this went down quickly as the year progressed, which wasn't related to the grades for as far as we could see. So we decided to zoom into the dropouts specifically, and we distinguished two groups: the school leavers on the one hand and the switchers on the other hand. And the switchers, they had a plan to follow a different educational path, while the school leavers just left without any other idea of what to do. And what we saw is that these processes were pretty different. Here you can see the need fulfillment outside of school, so the fulfillment of autonomy, competence, and relatedness. And the red line you see here in the middle is the moment of dropout, so they are all aligned at this moment. And you can see that the need fulfillment of the school leavers slowly declines until the moment of dropout, and then it declines even further. While for the switchers, we do not see this pattern. We even see an increase in need fulfillment outside of school, and around the dropout point, we don't have much more data on that, but we can see that these patterns are already pretty different. And we actually see the same for the valence of the experiences outside of school. So on the top here, experiences are very positive. On the bottom, they're very negative. And you can see that for the school leavers, the experiences become increasingly negative over the year. And after the moment of dropout, they really become much more negative. While for the switchers, we do not see this declining pattern at all. So what do mentors actually do to prevent dropout? Well, we ask them every week, what actions do you take to help your students stay in school? And this is what we saw. We see that the mentors, like 30% of their actions is directed at confronting the student. That is, confronting them with undesirable behavior and having them see that what they're doing isn't helpful for them. And for another large part, they provide emotional support, so giving them warmth and being there for them and listening to their problems. And another large portion of their time they spend just frequently making contact with the student. So giving them a short call, or speaking to them in the hallway, or sending them a little WhatsApp with, how are you? Did you do your homework? Did you make it out of bed this morning? Just frequent personal contact was something that happened a lot. And we also asked them, what goals do you strive for with all these actions? And you see that by far the most frequent goal that they strive for is to improve or foster the relationship with the student. So almost all the actions that they do, they have this relationship in their mind and they try to improve this. Well, thank you so much for your attention. I have listed here a few references so you can look up some of the information on the platform itself. The software is also available online on GitHub. It is open source, which means that you can use it for free, and you can also build on it if you want to. At the moment, there is still some technical expertise required to use the platform, or you can pay an IT guy to help you with this. But because of the open source nature of the platform, it can also be built on by others, which is happening at the moment, and a researcher dashboard is being developed. So you can, as a researcher, just set a study yourself. The results of the project are published in a Dutch book that is written mostly for practitioners and policymakers, but international papers are in preparation as we speak, so they will be forthcoming in the coming time. Yeah, that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed. Bye bye.